Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. Hope everyone having a good morning so far. My name is Alan. I'm the COO of ICE. Thursdays we talk about personal and organizational leadership and development, and also vestibular. That's how the schedule shakes out. So today I'm going to talk about organizational change, based in part on a book called About Face, which I'll touch on here in a little bit. Last day in the clinic for me this week. I'm excited. First day off in a very long time. Heading out to New Jersey to see the Proactivity Base Camp folks and my good friend Allie Hartman. So I'm excited to jump on a plane tomorrow and head out to New Jersey for Memorial Day weekend. Hope everyone else has some good plans for this weekend. Get out, be active, see some friends, make some connections. Hey, Virtual ICE. Registration is opening again very soon, June 12th. We're going to open registration back up. We're starting year 2, so year 1 is ending very shortly. Hard to believe it's been a year already of Virtual ICE. The big change with Virtual ICE going into year 2 is that we're going from bi-weekly to weekly sessions. So we'll have 52 sessions, one every Tuesday for the whole year, covering a whole bunch of different topics from all the different faculty. We've got the schedule ready already. We think it's going to be a good one. So $29 a month, 52 sessions, 24 CEUs. Check out ice.physio to sign up for the reminder and get signed up when we open registration in June. Next weekend, we've got Mitch out in Danbury, Connecticut, teaching clinical management of the fitness athlete live seminar. That's a wonderful course. If you want to get comfortable moving a barbell, if you've never moved a barbell, great opportunity. That same weekend, we've got Jeff in Olney, Maryland, teaching cervical spine management. June 23rd and 24th, we've got total spine management in Scottsdale, Pennsylvania with Justin Dunaway. That's going to be a hoot. I'll be there. The nobodies are going to be there. Will Boyd, Nick Brashante, the whole gang, over 25 people signed up. So that's going to be a fun one. So make your way to that one as well. So today we're going to talk about how to change the culture of an organization, how to make some changes within your clinic, within your team, within your entire company. How can we do that? And so the title of this episode comes from this monstrous book, About Face, 900 pages by Colonel David Hackworth, called Mr. Infantry, 35 Years of Service in the Army through World War II, Korea, Vietnam. All about how to kind of take what we might consider loser units in the military and turning them around, or as we say in the military, going about face. And so we hear this a lot at ICE. At the end of courses, we hear it often in our online groups. People say, wow, this is great. How can I get my coworkers to practice like this or implement these changes? How can I get my staff to implement these changes? How can I change the way we're doing things based on whatever's being taught? Subjective history or managing fitness athletes better. How can I make that change? How can I affect some meaningful organizational change? And I want to talk about 4 principles today, and those are that change always has to be done from the inside out. It can never be done from the outside in, screaming and yelling from the outside in as a third party. Change will almost always cause dissent. People hate change. It's just the way it is. Change has to deliver an outcome that people can actually register. They need to know that that change being made is worth their time, worth the struggle to make that change, whether it be a bigger paycheck for them or less time doing their job, a more efficient way to do their job. And finally, the change has to be consistent. You can't just make a change, see a little bit of result, and then dump it. You have to stick with it so that people don't revert to just doing stuff the way they've always been doing it. So we'll get down to the nitty-gritty of these one by one. So change from the inside out, you have to be embedded in whatever system you're trying to change. It's the only way it will work. Yelling at stuff on social media from the outside in has never changed anything ever. It's just not the way change is made. You have to be at the ground level. I've talked on here before about the Gemba walk, the Japanese model of actually going down to the factory floor, watching how things are done, understanding how people are doing the processes that you're asking them to do, and making meaningful change that way. We can model this too. If you've ever watched Mike Eisenhart talk about population health, he's got all these crazy computer models where he can put a red block and say, you know, this is one person talking about nutrition, and it's outside a block of 1,000 other people, and that person yelling about nutrition from the outside in never changes the behavior of the blocks inside the group. Once you put that block inside, put 5 blocks inside, you can model that very quickly behavior change happens. And that's really what we're talking about with organizational change, as we're trying to change the behavior of multiple people simultaneously, which, as we know from talking about nutrition and sleep and recovery and exercise with our patients, is very difficult. So trying to magnify that and do it on a large scale is that much more difficult. 1 or 2 people inside a large population can cause a lot of change, as long as they're inside. Change will always cause dissent. People hate change. It's why people complain about traffic all the time. People love routine. They have their little routines in their life, at work, at home, and they want to do those routines, and they want to be left alone. And trying to cause change is always going to cause dissent. It's just the name of the game. We're all little monkeys trying to get back to our tree at the end of the day, and we want to encounter as little resistance doing our things as possible. And trying to cause change and make change and cause upsets in the workplace is going to cause pushback, and you just need to accept that. A quote I like from About Face is Colonel Hackworth says, "Initially and naturally, when I went to make changes, the men hated me." And I think that speaks volumes to just how much you can expect pushback, and you need to just accept it and let it roll over you and kind of drive on. Making that meaningful change will always put a target on your back. And there's kind of a dichotomy of leadership here. We've talked about dichotomies of leadership before, but we want to be leaders. We want to make change. We want to have a more effective organization. But we also want to be liked by people. We don't want to be hated. People don't like to be hated by other people. Everybody wants to be friends. And so there's that dichotomy there between wanting to make a meaningful change, being the leader, and not wanting to be hated. But these don't have to be mutually exclusive, right? We can have some of both, right? And not or. And part of the way we do that is you mitigate that dissent by having a nice workplace that people like to go to. I've talked on here before about the subjective well-being crisis in the workplace. If people hate coming to work, if your team is in that giant group of people that are actively looking for a new job, that voluntarily tell people they hate their job, then making change is just going to cause that much more dissent. And just again, recognize another quote from About Face, just about everything you do will piss somebody off sometime. So just accept that dissent and drive through it. The third principle here is that the change has to deliver outcomes. So data doesn't drive behavior, but people like to see the outcome. They like to see the data. So people follow people, but they do like to see that what you're asking them to do actually has a purpose. And for me, I've seen this clinically, trying stuff, just modeling it myself in the clinic. I can catch the other providers out of the corner of my eye mimicking what I'm doing. And I'm sure some of you that have come to some ICE courses and have brought some principles back to your clinic, you've probably found the same, is that you catch people mimicking you out of the corner of your eye because they see the outcomes, they see the data that the change is being made, and they want that for themselves. So we have to show that to our people so that they almost voluntarily make the changes we want them to change. Another great quote from Colonel Hackworth here: "Figures don't lie, but liars do figure." So we have to keep it data driven, we have to keep it objective, measurable, obtainable. And so that can be as simple as, hey, we're doing a new EMR. It's going to save you 15 minutes a day on charting. It'll let you get out of here that much sooner. It'll let you have maybe an inkling of a lunch break that you may not have had before. So show them the outcome of the change you want to make, or tell them what you hope the outcome will be, so they know what they're actually working towards and why they're going through these changes. And finally, the last principle: recognize that change will always be slow. Mike talked about this Monday in his episode, The Future of Strong. Progress, not perfection. You can't just flip a switch on some of this stuff and change your organization overnight. It may be the slowest thing you've ever done, but you have to be consistent in it as well. That principle is kind of tied in with it being slow. If it seems too slow, that's okay. If you change directions too fast, which we kind of know this from learning how to do a subjective history, if you change directions too many times, you don't know where you're going. So you need to be consistent and recognize that the process is going to be slow. One of the big themes throughout this big honkin' book is that Colonel Hackworth arrives in Vietnam. He's asked to take over a unit, the 439 Infantry, a unit that is so far gone they're not entrusted with live ammunition. They're sitting on this base in the middle of Vietnam. War's going on. They're not trusted to fight anybody or do anything. They are such a lousy outfit. And he's there one day, and he writes down this list, and he says, I have about 1,000 changes to make. But he recognizes that he can't just go full bore and make all those changes at once. It's not like flipping a switch. He says, I'll make about 5 a day. So even though he has a lot to do to get this unit combat ready, he recognizes that he has to turn that screw slowly but consistently. You can't just drive it in with an impact driver and strip the screw, right? You have to be slow and consistent. So with that consistency, what I like about this book is it shows over time, over the course of a year, how Colonel Hackworth takes this unit, the 439 Infantry. Initially, when he arrived, they had 0 enemy killed, 0 enemy wounded, with 24 American killed and 485 wounded. So they were losing pretty badly, even though they weren't actually doing anything. And by the end of the year with them, they had improved to 100 to 1 or greater Viet Cong to American casualties. So they had gone from a unit that wasn't trusted with weapons in the middle of a war zone to a unit that regularly won in landslide victories. And it took a year. And in a war, a year is basically a lifetime. But following these principles, he got inside the unit. He recognized that people would not like the changes. He actually had a bounty on his head of a couple $100 for anybody who would shoot him in the back during a combat engagement. He delivered outcomes, measurable, obtainable, data-driven outcomes, and he recognized that it would be a slow but consistent process with making changes to get this group of infantrymen battle ready, and he did. So I think it's a great book. It's 900 pages. I know that's a very big book. But I think it's worth the read because it dives so much deeper into all these principles. I could talk about this book for hours. I love it. But if you follow these principles, you can make small changes, big changes, it doesn't matter, in your organization, in your team, in your clinic, or even with just your coworkers. As long as you recognize that changes will always cause dissent, changes must deliver some measurable outcome. That change will always be slow, but you have to be consistent and kind of stick with your guns when you're trying to make a change. And it always has to come from the inside out, never from the outside in. And the goal here is progress, not perfection. Learn from your lessons so that the mistakes you make today aren't repeated the next day and the next day and the next day. And for me, this is kind of very similar to how we practice clinically. When you are measuring your symptom behavior, taking your asterisk signs, you don't just have somebody come in, hey, how's it going? About the same. Great, let's do the same stuff and hope for some meaningful change to just fall out of the sky, because we know that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen one-on-one with patients, and it doesn't happen with organizations either. So I hope this helped. If you'd like to rap about this some more, I can talk about this book. I can talk about this topic forever, but we'll stop here for the sake of time. So changes will cause dissent. Changes will be slow. You have to be consistent. You have to be inside the group you're trying to change, and you have to show that the changes will deliver outcome. That's how you can start to make meaningful change at the organizational level. That's it. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a great holiday. For going out of town somewhere, going on a trip, I hope you have a great trip, get to see some friends and family, and unwind a little bit over this long weekend. I'll actually be back. The way the schedule shaked out, I'll be back Monday talking about veterans combat and post-traumatic stress for Monday with a pop on Monday morning. If you're doing Murph, scale appropriately. Make sure you can finish the whole workout, and I'll see you guys Monday. Have a great weekend.